Hello, welcome back. I'm going to tackle another vintage dress in this video. This is another Vogue one and I'm really excited about it. It's another 1950s one. This one's, it says circa 1954, so that's what we're going to go with. And it is this one here. Just seems like a really light, flowy, really comfortable one for the summer. And I have this beautiful, flowy, very breathable fabric that I'm going to use. The funny thing is the camera is making it look more red. It's a really, really deep pink. Pinky red, I guess. But it's very pretty and it will be very, very comfortable. So I am excited about that. I am going to put pockets in this one. I gotta get to ironing and cutting, and that will probably be tomorrow because it is super late right now. I had to wait till they were all in bed to do this intro, and I'm tired because I don't stay up that late anymore because they'll be up early. So I will get to ironing and cutting tomorrow. Now everything is cut out. One thing I'm going to say, this is going to be the first dress in which I do not do a built-in slip or underskirt, and I think I'm going to leave them off from here on out. My original thought process, and someone did ask me about this in doing that, was I wasn't 100% sure I was going to be making more than a couple of these, and yeah, there was an element of pure laziness in it, in that I just didn't want to have to worry about thinking about going and getting a slip. And I have one, but it's a modern one that is not breathable, and yes, it's slippery, but I hate it. I hate it so much. So I didn't know if it would work to make one out of linen or a light cotton or something, just anything that's more breathable. And the light cotton, no, the light linen seems to be working really well with the four dresses that I've made. Anyway, so I'm gonna just do that, and probably I'm not gonna put that in any type of video because I'm just gonna make a quick linen slip out of some really light linen that I have on hand. And so that will make this dress go a lot faster once I start the assembly, because I won't have to figure out how to include all of that. Also, one thing that I'm going to really weigh with every vintage or retro pattern or recreation of a pattern, or however anybody wants to label these, I'm just going to call them vintage patterns because I don't care. And the linings. I put a lining in, all four of them. I'm sitting there looking at them hanging on the rack, and I don't regret that. However, in this particular pattern, this is the first one that I'm just really not sure. I don't want to worry about it. I don't want to really think about it. They're adding a whole bunch of extra fabric and a whole bunch of extra steps. So I might try to see, which again, I don't regret the linings. It's just a couple of the dresses have called for it and a couple of them have not. And it's really more about personal preference on the interior of the garment in wanting all of the raw edges hidden in between two layers. However, there are other seam finishing methods, and I might just start figuring out some of those. Not that I don't know them, I know them. Just figuring out which one I want per dress based off of the fabric that I'm using and the style of the dress and how it would look. As in, sometimes I might want a felled seam, sometimes I might want to try for a French seam on the bodice. I don't know if that's possible on some of these. Pinking shears, anything else. There are other methods. I have a serger, but I need to go check on boys right now because three little ones have been told to clean their room, and I do not think that that is actually happening. But nobody can actually walk in their room right now. And one of them started screaming yesterday because they stepped on a toy that they didn't see under a mountain of other toys and hurt their foot. So I need to go assist. But the next step will be to start assembling this dress. I just wanted to hop in here and say it's going to look different from here on out with any of the vintage dresses that I'm going to do, because I'm going to stop trying to I'm certainly not opposed to taking shortcuts. I'm still obviously going to cut out seams that are unnecessary in the front center of the skirt, especially because I don't like them. But it will look different in that I'm going to stop trying to finagle the patterns quite as much to try to put in the linings and the extra underskirt and all of that. I would much rather try to do the finagling and actually remember to put pockets in, or purposely put pockets in, like I did not do on 2 of them. I did do it on the other 2, but I did not do it on 2 of them. And I'm already going to go back and add pockets to those 2, because I've only worn the dresses a few times and I'm already regretting not putting the pockets in there. So I would much rather do my finagling in like going ahead and adding pockets. Again, I'm going to go check on boys. And hopefully, I've been looking at the cutout pieces for almost a week now. Haven't even touched it. Yay. Yay, yay. Such is summer. Anyway, and hopefully I can begin assembly, because I'm really excited about this one. The fabric is really flowy, really breathable, really pretty, and the style is just so summery, and oh, I just want to walk around the house all day in it. So yeah, I want to get it made. So I'm going to try to start with the voiceover here, and we'll see how far I get, because the boys are playing a video game downstairs and they're screaming. But I'm hiding in my room and seeing if I can get it done. Anyway, so this dress started with the bust pleats. They're not darts. As you can see me pivoting and stitching. So there was 2 in each side of the front, and I stitched those down, and then those were basted down to the bottom at the edge. Then also what I'm going to show in this bit of clip is that the armholes aren't really the typical armholes. So the edges for the armholes go ahead and get hemmed up right now after these pleats are done. And so I just took it over to the iron and pressed it down very narrowly, and then pressed it down again for a turn and turn edge on that seam. And then the front 2 pieces are sewn together and then sewn together at the sides, but those armholes are already completely finished when you sew them together. And I'm going to show it. I hope that made sense. But yeah, it was interesting to go ahead and finish up that edge first. So like I said, just finishing up those pleats, and then they were ironed, pressed down, I guess. Ironed is a perfectly fine word. I like saying pressed. And then tacked down. And yeah, there we are, showing the turn and turn for the armhole edge. Okay, I'm gonna jump back in and do the best I can to re-explain what I tried to show a little bit of, but I ended up having a 5-year-old come in and join me and read me books while I was working, so I wasn't gonna discourage that. The instructions gave the option of putting in a binding of sorts in the center front seam for stabilization, and I ended up utilizing that in a little bit different way than they said. It said to center it and baste it in, and then just sew the seam. Well, I ended up not centering it, and I used bias tape and then used that to then bind the seam. So It's a completely finished seam. It pressed out really well in the front. The only part of that that's not bound is where this is going to get folded over for the casing for the drawstring. So that worked well enough that I ended up doing that for the side seams as well. And the reason I used the pink is because I didn't have this color of red pink, and I had pause. Okay, back. So I did the same thing on the side seams. I probably will not do that on the center back seam because the zipper will be there and it probably will not be needed. But I like how it ended up. It's a very small bias tape. It worked for binding that seam. And yeah, so I did that on both. And the other big thing was that both of the armhole seams were done in a narrow hem before the front was sewed to the back pieces. So at this point we put this aside and start on the skirt. So that's all sewn together, tucks are done, armholes are hemmed, and yeah, so now I'm going to grab the skirt pieces and the pockets and figure out how I'm going to insert the pockets. So as I stated, I did eliminate the center front seam. However, I am not able to eliminate the center back seam because zipper, that's where it's going to go. And that's fine. I'm more concerned about that center front seam not being there. It's pointless. Also, I was trying to save fabric because I had to fold the pattern piece over a pretty, probably about this much, to get this dress in the first place. This is not going to have near the fullness that the original pattern has because I didn't have enough fabric to do it. So also eliminating the center front seam gives me not too much more, but a little bit more. The fabric wasn't nearly as wide. And the thing is, you know, it's still going to be gathered. It's going to still be a nice gathered skirt. It's just not going to be as gathered as it would have been. And that's perfectly fine. So I gotta go press out that pleat. But I will say what I did for my pocket is I made it longer going up. That way, hopefully, I've got plenty of room from the waist seam going down to it's where I want it to be. I hope I did that because this is all the fabric I had. I mean, I've got two little tiny bits left, but that's it. I'm inking every bit out of this fabric. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out exactly where I want it and measure it down, mark it, go ahead and sew the front, sew it right sides together to the front on both sides and to the side seam front on both of the back panels and make sure that they line up, and then I will be doing these side seams in French seams. So that's the process I'm going to be working on. I don't know how much of it I will be filming because as you saw, I've already been interrupted once, and I'm going to be opening that door so that they feel a little bit more free to walk in here. I closed it just to film this part. We did get a completely clean room. I'm really happy. It will not stay that way, and that's fine, but it had reached a point of epic proportions of mess, and yeah. They've been enjoying their summer break, which is good, I don't generally care. They're not required to clean it every single night, but when it gets to that point, it's like, we can't even walk in there without somebody stepping on something, and not only does that hurt us, but trying to explain it to two 5-year-olds, I think the 8-year-old gets it, but it's like, we also risk breaking your toys, and we're not trying to break your toys, but when we step on them because they're under something and we missed it and we didn't see it, stuff has gotten broken and we've had tears, and so it's like, it's not just about safety, that is a big part of it, it's also about, you know, we don't want to break your stuff. So anyway, pockets and side seams. Okay, I want to jump in and show I finished the French seam. Once I finished it, I pressed it towards the front because, you know, when you put your hand in your pocket, it needs to go towards the front. So I also, in the final finish, did this little matching it with where the seam was up at the top here, came down to this point where I back stitched a couple of times, and then I basted or stitched the pocket towards the front so that when you turn it around, that is the pocket opening. And I've got enough room for my hand. And then that is the front of the seam. I think that looks really good. Now I've got to go do the other French seam on the other side of the skirt. Just really quick showing you guys here that I finished the 2 French seams for the side, and then I pointed to the bottom to show you where the bottom was, but that's the hem, because up here I got the seam ready for the zipper. And so for that I did another French seam up to where the zipper is going to get inserted, and then press down the edges where the zipper is going to get sewn in. And then I ran 2 rows of gathering stitches along that entire top edge of the skirt and slowly got it pinned, and then gathers evenly placed, and pinned it to the finished bodice, right sides together. And then I will show in a minute that I used the same bias tape that I used for the bodice on the inside to bind the seams. I did that same thing with the waist seam, just because there was a lot of raw edge there with the gathers and I needed something. So I just went with the same method I had done in the other part of the dress. And I haven't sewn the zipper in yet, but all I did was just run a straight stitch down one side and up the other to get the zipper sewn in. And then that top edge where it's going to get turned under on the inside for the tie at the top, I hemmed up that edge narrowly the same way that I had done the armhole edges. So I tried to show it with holding the camera with one hand and doing it with my other, but I don't think I showed very well. So I'm going to say what I'm doing now is pressing that top edge under by about 1/4 of an inch, and then it is pressed under again in the width that needs to be for the tie to go through it. And I started in the middle for this part because it V's down towards the front, and I wanted to make sure it was laying correctly. So once that was all pressed down, I went and stitched that down, and then did the hem for the dress with a rolled hem foot, which I will talk about that in a second. But that completed the actual dress portion. Then I had to work on the tie. I got the hem done as well as the top casing. And I wanted to say a couple of things before I go, because I do have to go finish fixing dinner and getting it on the table. There was a little bit extra on the interior, so I just kind of stuffed it up under the machine with a pin there. It's on the inside. It's going to be cinched anyway. It's not going to matter. Not sure what happened, but that's what it is. And as you saw, I used my 1/4 inch rolled hem foot for the hem, which I am regretting. It is a mess of hot garbage. I have not typically had the best success with the rolled hem foot, but I thought that I could with this fabric. No. No. It might have worked better on my Singer because the Juki is so powerful. I think it was just pulling it too hard, but I didn't want to have to thread the Singer with the machine because I would have also had to thread a different bobbin because it uses a different bobbin. So I just went with it. I should have just taken the long route and ironed it up and then hemmed it. You really can't tell too much from the outside, but on the inside, it's a mess. Like, I don't know if it'll focus on that, but I don't know what it was doing. So anyway, yeah, I have a lot of the extra feet. I don't use them too often, and I should to get better at it. But when this happens, I get frustrated and I just go back to doing it the long way. It's fine. I'm not going to go rip out the whole hem and redo it. Pressing it really helped hide it from the outside. You really have to look very close to see it. And frankly, if you're looking at my hem that closely, you better be my kids or my husband. So anyway, I'm not too concerned about it. But that is it for tonight. I will tackle the tie thing tomorrow. For the tie, I just took a creamy white satin. It's not straight white. It's a little bit of cream remnant that I had in my stash and cut out a strip that was long enough and made the ends pointed. And this was different than the pattern because the pattern actually called for just a ribbon to go through it, but I didn't have a ribbon in my stash that I liked that worked with this. So this is what I'm doing for now. I will keep a lookout for a ribbon that might have a little bit more structure later, but this worked. However, what that meant I needed to do was I added a 1/4 inch on either side of the pattern piece for this portion, which I think the pattern piece was more just to show you how long to do the ribbon, because obviously you don't need to like cut out a ribbon, but I used it as a pattern piece and then stitched it down at that 1/4 inch all the way around, turned it right side out, pressed it, and then top stitched it around. So, and I used my chopstick that I have for turning corners to pull out the points on this. And again, I mean, I don't know how much more structure ribbon would have than this, but this worked really well. I like it a lot, and I think it looks fine. So for now, this is what we have, and I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I did stitch a little tiny V in that center front so that it would lay appropriately in the top of the casing. And then I didn't use my clover tool that you see right there in the frame for this because the strip of fabric was a little bit wide and it just wasn't going in easily. So I used the good old safety pin method to get it through. And then once that was through all the way, it was done, and I can't wait to show it to you. Okay, final thoughts on this dress. It is every bit as flowy and comfortable as I hoped it would be. I love it. The fabric is so comfortable. It is so flowy. I'm glad that I was able to get the 2 pockets in. It's just, I love it. And to me, it's not really noticeable that I had to cut out a substantial amount of the fabric because I didn't have it in the skirt. It's still gathered, it's still flowy, and I think it still works wonderfully. It's just so comfortable. I'm happy with this. I might go find a ribbon eventually or keep on the lookout for anything I can find at the thrift store to see if I can replace it, but for now this that I made with the satin works just fine. And I'm glad that I didn't make it super long in the back because I just don't have the ability for ties to be flying everywhere. And yeah, this fabric worked really well. Like I said earlier in the video, the hem is a little bit of a nightmare, but you can't really tell from the outside, and with it swooshing around you really can't tell. And if somebody's looking at my hem that closely, they're too close, so I'm not worried about it. Thank you so much for joining me. I would love to hear your thoughts on it, and I would love for you to like and subscribe and stick around for more sewing fun, whether it be quilting shenanigans, whether it be bag shenanigans, whether it be vintage or modern day dress or something for my daughter. I do have a couple of Halloween costumes that I'm about to start. My daughter wants to be Merida for Christmas. No, for Halloween. And she wants me to be Merida's mom for Halloween. She actually wants my husband to be Merida's dad, but I'm not sure I can pull that one off. But we're going to see what I can do for Merida and Merida's mother for me, because I feel like that would be a lot of fun. I would love to do that with her. And bets that we can convince my 3 little boys to be bears, to be little black bears. I don't know. But if I could at least get the twins to agree to be little black bears, that would be so much fun. But they will get to choose, so I don't know that we will be successful in that. But I would love for you to stick around, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.